Welcome back. In this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a die. So when you shake it, it'll show a number of the die. And every time you shake it, you could potentially get a different number. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get coding. The first thing we're going to need to do is go to microbit.org. So I'm going to go back to microbit.org. And if you remember, there's Get Started, Projects, and Lessons all have ideas on how to code. But we're going to get right down to coding by clicking on the Let's Code button. Once we get to this page, you can see there's a Make Code Editor, and that's what we want. So I'm going to click on Make Code. Now you can come directly here in the future. If you'll notice, the URL is makecode.microbit.org, and that'll bring you directly to this page. For this project, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a single die that we can roll. So I'm going to call this the die demo, and we will create it. Once we've created this, it's always good, as I've always mentioned, the first thing we do is we plan it out, right? Let's break down what it is that we want to code. So I'm going to get rid of this forever block. I'm pretty sure I don't need it right now. And what I need to do is have something happen when I shake the die. I need to choose a random number between 1 and 6. And depending on the integer that's chosen, I need to show a certain number of dots that are on that side of the die. So how do we do that? First, we go to Input, and we choose the onShake event. I'm going to drag this out here. Now that I have the onShake event out, I'm going to go ahead and put my comment on this event. So I'm going to right-click on Shake and click Add Comment. I'm going to move it over to the side and make it a little bit larger. Now what I'm going to do is say something to this effect. When I shake the microbit, number 1, I need to choose a random integer between 1 and 6. Then, depending on the number chosen, show the corresponding die face with dots. And that's pretty much it. That's our plan. Pretty simple. I think I would like to add something on start. If I add a comment here, I can say on start, give directions to the user. I think it's always helpful to do that. One of the things I've noticed is it does take a while to read through the directions on the microbit because they tend to scroll. So try to keep them to really short words if you can. In this case, I think what I'll do is I'll just tell the user to shake the die. So we have on start. What I need to do is give directions to them. I'm going to click on my basic blocks. And if you'll remember, if we want to show a word, we choose this block that says show string. I'm going to pull out show string. And in show string, instead of saying hello, I'm going to tell them to shake. That should hopefully tell the user that they should shake. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is over here on the left-hand side, there is a virtual microbit. This is super handy. This allows you to test out your code and see what it would act like if you had an actual microbit, or if this code were on a microbit. So this is a great microbit simulator, and you can actually see as I move around, it moves with me. So it's kind of like I'm tilting it. If I wanted to simulate shaking it, I could click on the shake, and it'll shake it. If I wanted to simulate clicking the A button, I could click over A and B this way. This is super handy. As we go through and we code, you'll start to use this more and more. For right now, all we have is this restart on start, say shake. So if I wanted to restart it again, I could click on the restart arrows that are right below the microbit, and then you'll see it says shake once it starts up. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's go ahead and choose a random integer between 1 and 6. What we need to do is we need to store this integer in a variable. If you'll remember, variables are something that we use when we need a container for a single piece of data or information. So under my code over here, you'll see that about the 6th or 7th 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th coding area down, we have variables. So I'm going to click on variables. There's nothing here right now because I haven't created any variables. So let's make a variable. I've got a variable. I'm just going to call this one something like my number. And I'm going to spell that correctly, my number. Now that I've got my number, what I want to do is I want to randomly set my number to some number between 1 and 6. So I'm going to pull out set my number, and on shake, that's the first thing I'm going to do. But instead of setting it to some fixed number, I need to make sure it's random. You can find the random block over in the math area. So if I click on math and I scroll down, you'll notice there's a block here that says pick random, and it has a floor and a ceiling, or a bottom and a top number. If I pull this out and put it where the 0 is, now I will set my number to one of these random numbers. So for example, I'll say 1, 2, 6. Great. So let's go ahead and test it. If I were to restart it, you can see over here my simulator, it says shake, which is great. So let's click on the shake button. Did anything happen? It doesn't appear that anything happened, but something did happen. We actually did set my number to one of these random numbers, but we never showed it on the screen. If I wanted to show it simply, I could go to Basic and grab the Show Number block. If I pull out the Show Number block, what is the number that I want to choose, or the one that I want to show? Well, the number is whatever my number variable is at this point. So I'm going to go back to variables and pull out my number and put it into show number. Now, if I were to start it up, you see the simulator says shake. And if I wanted to try it out, I could go ahead and click on the shake, and that'll simulate a shake, and I see the number 3. Perfect. If I shake it again, I see the number 1, 4. I can keep clicking the shake, and it's going to generate one of those numbers. If you wanted to create a really simple die with digital numbers like this, you're done. We basically have 5 blocks of code, and that was all that you needed to do. Of course, we want to do a little bit different. We want this to actually have the dot notation that you normally see on the face of dice. So what we're going to do, instead of showing this number, is we need to create the face of our die. So let me show you how you would do that. I'm going to drag this show number, my number, off to the side and trash it. Now that I still need to choose that random integer, which is what this first thing is doing. But now what I need to do is I need to check which number was rolled so I can change the face of the die accordingly. The way that I do that is I need an if-then-else statement. So let's go over to our logic to find our if-then-else statement. And you can see here there's if, some condition, then do something, else do something else. So I'm going to pull this out and put that right after I've set it. So what is the condition that we want to check? Hopefully you said you want to check if my number equals 1. So that's what I need to put in right here, if some condition is true, right? So I'm going to go back to my logic in here, and I want my comparison operators, and I want to grab an equals comparison. I'm going to drag this out if something is true. Now, what is the thing that I'm asking if it's true? In this case, it's my variable. So I'm going to go back to variables, and I'm going to grab my number and put my number right in the first slot. If my number equals 1, then I want to show the LEDs with 1 dot. So I go to Basic, and I grab my Show LEDs block, and I put a single dot right in the middle. Right? Now if I wanted to test this, I could, well, once that message comes across, I'm going to shake it, and if it's a 1, it should show a dot. I shook it, shook it, shook it. Oh, and it looks like we got a 1, and now we got a dot. Every other time that we're shaking it, we're getting some other value. What we need to do is we need to go ahead and check for those other values. Well, the way we do that's pretty simple. It's almost the same as what we just did here. We just need to change the values. You'll notice this says if some condition is true, then, and then we have what we're doing, and then it has an else statement, just like it did in Scratch. The nice thing about this code editor, however, is that if we wanted to add a whole bunch of different if-else conditions, we can click on the plus and we could add those other conditions. So now I clicked on plus and I have if, and then I have an else if, and I have several else ifs because I clicked that button several times. So else if this condition is 2, then I want to do a different show of LEDs. So I'm just going to copy this whole condition from up here. I'm going to right click and duplicate. And now that I've duplicated it, you can see as I get it kind of close, it snaps to that spot so it can fill that in. And I need to change this from a 1 to a 2. And then I need to grab my show LEDs, and I need to come in to change my LEDs to show 2 dots. Now I'm going to just repeat that process. I'm going to duplicate this same bit of code. My number equals 3. Now I'm going to right click and duplicate the show LEDs again. And I'm going to change this to a die with 3 dots. And if I want to duplicate this again, I'm going to come down here. Oops, it looks like I dragged that out. I'm going to duplicate this, change this to a 4. And now I'm duplicating my dots and changing this to 4 dots. And I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to duplicate. Oh, but it looks like I don't have a spot for the 5, so I need to click on the plus button one more time. And I'm going to put this condition right in here in this else if. And if it's 5, then what I want to do is I want to duplicate this LED. And I'm going to put it in here and show what 5 LEDs might look like. And this is kind of my die with 5 dots. Now, I've checked 1 through 5, but this integer can only be 1 through 6. So I really don't need an if condition on this last one. Basically, if it's not 1 through 5, it's going to be 6 by process of elimination. So all I need to do this time is duplicate the else what happens, and then go ahead and make a die face that shows 6 dots. One of the things I found when shaking a die is sometimes you shake a lot and it does this several times. So it's always helpful to put a pause, even if it's just a half-second pause at the end of your shaking. So I'm going to go and find my pause in the basic blocks. And if you scroll down, you'll see pause, and it says ms. Those are milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds is a tenth of a second. If I click on that drop down, I can change that to several different values, or I can enter my own value. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and just pause it for 500 milliseconds, which means it'll pause for a half a second. That way, when I shake, it doesn't try to run this code a whole bunch of times in a row. It waits every time I have shooken it. It should wait about a half second. So let's test this out and see if it works. We have our simulator over here, and if I click on the shake, I got a 4. If I click it again, now I can see it was a 6, it was a 1, 5, 3, 4, etc., and so on. In fact, if I want to restart this, I can see it still says shake on startup, and then it goes through that whole process again. So the last thing that we need to do is we need to get our program onto our microbit. So as a reminder, you need your microbit and you need a USB connector connected to your computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in to the right port in the right way. Now it's hooked up and connected to my computer. I can click on download, or I can click on this save icon next to the name. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the save icon. And it's going to take a moment, and it pops up. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to find my microbit. And I'm just going to save this directly to my microbit. You could save it to your desktop or your downloads folder and then drag it to your microbit. And that's a good thing to do if you want to save the program for later. Right now, I'm just going to download this directly to my microbit. I'm going to hit save. And as I hit save, you'll notice it's blinking yellow. This is the computer's way of showing you that it's transferring data. Now when it's done transferring that data, you'll see I get a message from my computer that I ejected the microbit without asking, and that's because the microbit basically restarts every time you upload a new program to it, because it replaces what the old program was that was there. So let's test this out and see if it works. If I click on the reset button, it should tell me shake to begin with, and sure enough, it shows the word shake in that marquee. Now, if I want to try this out, I can shake it, and I get a 5. Shake it again, I get a 3. Get a 1. Got a 3. 6, and so on. And that's it. You just created a digital die. Congratulations.